Good morning, gentlemen. I think it's a wonderful weather, but what I'm going to talk to you about is not wonderful. I'm going to talk to you about the war in Gaza and the chance that it could spill into World War III. I don't say it's a chance, it looks like to be an absolute certainty as it stands today. Now, this war actually uh, started with a lot of misconceptions on the part of Hamas. हमास ने सोचा कि हम इजराइल पे अटैक करेंगे, 12,000 रॉकेट फेंकेंगे, होस्टेजेस ले लेंगे, एंड ऑफ कोर्स जो लेडीज हैं, वुमेन होस्टेजेस हैं, उनसे हम आनंद भी लेंगे, और इजराइल जो है घबरा जाएगा, इट विल कम ऑन इट्स नीज एंड से आई गिव अप, आप जो चाहिए करिए, हम आपसे पीस करेंगे. They thought that the hostages they will capture and the deep psychic attack which they would have made on Israel with those rockets would bring Israel to its knees. But everything is not cut and dried like that, and that's precisely what happened. Israel has not buckled down, and on the contrary, Israel has mounted an offensive in Gaza. I will now talk about this offensive during the course of minds later. But as it stands at the moment, सिर्फ दो nations and two nations in the world are against the entire world empire. Those nations are Israel, and it has got an ally, the United States, which is the most powerful nation in the world. दूसरी बात यह है कि most of the European countries जो हैं and countries in South America, Central America, they are all asking for a ceasefire from Israel. And nobody is supporting Israel to that extent. While, as far as Hamas is concerned, despite all the atrocities they have committed and the fact that the attack was launched by Hamas, has generally the support of the world. India was, of course, one of the first countries to recognize the danger of Hamas, and it came out in support of Israel. So Israel has got very few friends in this world, and even India is hedging its bets. It's not going all out in support of Israel. That point we must bear in mind. The Indians are playing their cards very closely. They're not condemning Israel. They're not supporting a ceasefire. But at the same time, there's double speak. They're saying you have a two-state solution. And everybody knows वो two-state solution से कोई लड़ाई बंद होने वाली नहीं है. That's a big sham, throwing dust in the eyes of people that two-state solution is going to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the problem because the problem is Israel. And the Palestinian Arabs have decided, come what may, we must remove Israel from the map of the Middle East. Now, if that is the aim and you don't want to live in peace, you don't want to have detente, how can you move forward? अच्छा, now situation ऐसी आ गई है कि Israelis have gone into Gaza in a very big way, and many of the top leadership of Hamas has been killed. Now people are talking that so many people, children have died. In fact, my figures tell me that about 32,500 Palestinian Arabs have been killed. Now, it's a bad thing. I would say certainly bad thing. But would these people have been killed if Hamas had not launched that nefarious attack on Israel? I want to ask this question. The status quo was continuing. And now the dice has been heavily loaded against Hamas and the Palestinian Arabs. Israel has stopped work permits for the Gaza population to work in Israel because they were doing a lot of labor work there. They were plumbers, electricians, and all used to go and work there, earn a livelihood. They can't earn anything now. And Israel is looking for labor in other countries, and India is one of them. The first batch of Indian labor from state of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have gone to Israel to work. They are going to replace the Palestinian labor. And who is the loser? Palestinians will be losing their livelihood, they will lose their living space, their peace of mind, and 32,000 will be killed, all for supporting Hamas. I think there is some thinking in Israel now, in Gaza now, that we have done a mistake in supporting Hamas. And there is some problem between the PLA, that is the other organization in Palestine, and Hamas. And Hamas has arrested some of the PLA leadership. The PLA, which was earlier headed by Yasser Arafat, actually were looking for detente with Israel and a peaceful solution. But Hamas doesn't want a peaceful solution. It's a terrorist organization. And it is an organization that even the Arabs don't trust. None of the Arab states, the peripheral states like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, want the Palestinian Arabs to come in their territory. If you remember, the Palestinian Arabs had taken refuge in Jordan, on the West Bank, on the East Bank, I think. And these people went and revolted against the king. They started fighting against the king till they had to be put down by military force. So you can't trust them. You think these people are going to accept the Saudi dynasty? I don't think so. And the Saudi dynasty knows it. That's why they are playing cool as far as Hamas is concerned. But overall, the world seems to be really concerned about the Israeli offensive in Hamas. Some people have approached the International Court of Justice in Hague against Israel, declaring it to be carrying out a genocide. They've called for a ceasefire. Now, the International Court, I think, is a very dubious distinction. I won't say use any strong words for it. This is the same court which branded Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. I mean, you don't go around branding the leader or the president of a country as a war criminal, But that's what they have done. And they issued an arrest warrant also for him. And half the world is just supporting these people because the Americans actually run the International Court of Justice. I don't think any judgment is going to come against Israel from the International Court. Maybe some wishy-washy judgment will come here and there. But since the Americans don't want it, it's not going to come. Now, America is on the horns of a dilemma. The dilemma is to support Israel or not. What to do? क्या करना आगे? Israel को support करें? नहीं करें? Nobody seems to know what is happening. America is supplying weapons, but Biden is under pressure, tremendous pressure. And one thing surprises me recently, only I think 2 days back, there were demonstrations all over America in support of the Palestinians against the Israelis, calling for Israel to cease fire. I mean, I cannot understand what's happening in America. It just shows that the American people have lost their character, the will to support their government in any battle, in war. And if you remember, Vietnam, the same thing happened there. The American army, which was fighting so bravely in Vietnam, was being restricted by Congress in its military policy, number one. Number two, there was an anti-war agitation on in America. People said, we don't want to go and fight with Vietnam. So when that sort of thing is building up and there's a cancer inside you, the Americans are bound to lose in Vietnam. What the US armed forces are asking for was a carte blanche to win the war by bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which comes from China to North Vietnam, which was not accepted by Congress. And restrictions were put on the American military. With the result, America was fighting the war in Vietnam with one hand tied behind its back. Now, as this is of course not going to concern, I'm not concerned in this video about the Vietnam War, which I'll talk about in detail sometime in another video. But now coming back to the Palestinian war, the same thing is happening. The Palestinian Arabs are fighting back, And they are fighting back because they've got support. They got support from Turkey, they've got support from Iran and Pakistan, and of course the West European countries are putting pressure on Israel. Now, why should they be putting pressure on Israel? I don't think none of these countries really came out strongly for some action against Hamas once it had launched that nefarious attack. And about 1,500 Israelis were killed and about 300 taken prisoner, and there were videos all around of what happened to the women hostages. I won't repeat it here, everyone knows it. And despite this, the Western European nations were just sitting mum over it. It only required India's Premier Modi to come out in support of Israel at that time. He's the first man who came out. But again, as I told you, India is also under great pressure. It has to hedge its bets. It can't come out openly in support of Israel like the Saudis or the UAE. So they talk of the two-state solution. भाई दो स्टेट सोल्यूशन होना चाहिए. Now let me say कि ये दो स्टेट सोल्यूशन से क्या लड़ाई बंद होगी? Will the war stop if there is a two-state solution and a Palestinian state is created, which is a small, which is albeit going to be a small one? I don't think so. For the simple reason that Hamas and the Palestinian leadership have decided that the only solution is the wiping out of Israel from the map of the Middle East. That if that extreme position is taken, obviously, how can you have any peace? You have 2 states or 3 states, or you make any number of things you do, it never happen. And I think, in my way of thinking, Egypt and other countries also do not want a Palestinian state, a separate Arab state, which could become a center, a fountain of terror. And it could spread in the whole Middle East. Now, gentlemen, what I'm talking is not an idle talk. I hope people can glean to what exactly I'm saying. I'm saying, number one, is that the Hamas is the brother of the ISI and other similar organizations. That is number one. Number two, it has got its own goals very clear. They are fanatical goals dictated by a fictitious interpretation of Islam. And secondly, they are die-hard fighters. They say never give up. The only way they can give up is to be decimated. Even now, the ISI, despite all the talk of the Americans, has not been decimated and still active in so many places in the world. So, gentlemen, let us be very clear about one aspect, that this war is not going the way anybody expected. Now, talking of the war in which Israel is fighting, it is fighting alone. It's a single nation fighting against almost the world in a way. There are people in America, there are people in Western Europe, Russia, China, Africa, all against Israel. I don't see Israel as a single friend. That's why there was a astrological forecast by one of the Indian astrologers. He said Israel is going to be in serious trouble. And now with the demonstrations all over America against Israel, I don't see what's going to happen next. The only solution appears to be that if Israel can smash Hamas once for all as quickly as possible. But so many weeks have passed and the Israelis have not been successful. That means Hamas is resilient and it can stand the Israeli assault. Despite that area just being about 30 kilometers wide and about 10 to 12 kilometers in length, as just being a small area, despite such a small area, Israel has not been able to sanitize it. Let's be very frank. Because there are hundreds of kilometers of tunnels underneath which have been built by Hamas over the last 2 decades, and they, like a catacomb, like a cobweb. And so many hostages, despite the Israeli army moving all over, have not been discovered. They don't know where they've been hidden. And that's a big failure of the Israeli intelligence, including that of the American CIA. They damn well don't know where the hostages are. So the battle is continuing. Probably those hostages will have to be sacrificed And it is very sad that it happened because Israel is not going to give up. So Hamas first surmised that Israel will say, we give up, you have taken our hostages, return it. Has not happened and will not happen. So what is next? Israel is fighting for survival. It has got a nuclear bomb. And recently they have done something which probably the Israelis felt is very essential. They went and bombed the embassy in Damascus, that is the Iranian embassy, and some of the top leadership terrorists who were planning terrorist acts against Israel and were having a meeting were killed. Now this meeting was taking place in the embassy premises mainly because they thought that we have diplomatic cover, nobody attack us here, and we can go and do what we feel like, मजे कर सकते हैं, and we're going to win in any case, and Israel cannot attack us, but Israel doesn't follow the rules of war and they attack. Iran is now seething to take revenge. It's seething with anger. They say, we're going to take revenge. But I think the Iranians do not know what is going to happen. Iran will definitely take revenge, non-attack, but the repercussions are going to be terrible. Terrible, I think. I have read somewhere that there's something called the EMU bomb, It's an electromagnetic bomb which is dropped. And in a particular area, the entire electrical grid goes zero, becomes zero. In the world, it packs up. And in that area, no light, no switch, nothing will function. And this doesn't kill the people, but it disables the entire electrical grid. And once that happens, then Israel could use this bomb on Iran. Even the Iranian nuclear program, which is, based on computers and artificial intelligence and other things, will just collapse because the electrical grid will not, the power will not be available for these people. So this is a very relevant point, and that would mean further escalation. Israel would have to be ready for another assault from Iran. Now, China has very cleverly, neutralized Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now having diplomatic relations with Iran, and they are not on the war path together. But one thing the Saudis also know, that Iran is vying for leadership of the Arab world. And the only stumbling block is that it's a Shia country, and Shias cannot lead the Muslim world when they constitute only 20% of the world population of Muslims. Then we have Turkey, which is actually the sick man of Europe. Turks don't know what they're happening. And now I think there could be Israel is winning but has not won. That's one. America is supporting them, but it's getting rubbery feet. It doesn't know. It's the only nation supporting Israel at the moment. And in the UN General Assembly, I think only about 6 or 8 nations are supporting Israel in the sense they are abstaining, and that is not a very happy situation. Because the world has been fed up on an anti-Semitism. Most of the world is either Islamic or Christian. And the Christian nations in their heart of hearts haven't forgiven Israel for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. That is my way of thinking. And that is why the Jews have been persecuted for 2,000 years. In Western Europe, they were welcome in India. Nothing happened here to the Jews. But Western Europe, whether it was the Soviet Empire and earlier the Tsarist Empire, the Germans, any place you take it, anti-Semitism was right and was rife. And that is personified by the character Shylock, which was created by Shakespeare. I mean, that is what he thought and was the prevalent feeling in the 16th century about the Jews, and it's continued ever since. Hitler was just one aspect of persecution of the Jews, and that is anti-Semitism is continuing. And the propaganda of the other countries, that is the Hamas and others who are anti-Jewish, is very deep. With the result, we had all those demonstrations in America in favor of Hamas against Israel. Now, what is the next solution? I think we are heading towards World War III. It's inevitable. Because the only way World War III can be averted if Israel smashes Hamas in the Gaza Strip, occupies it, sanitizes the entire area, and the leadership is captured and put on trial. Of course, a lot of them have been killed. But now the question is that is not happening. Hamas has shown an intrinsic reliance to survive. They are resilient and they are surviving. And as far as Israel is concerned, they are not smashing them as it should have been done. Earlier wars, the Israelis were always decisive winners from the word go. Even the 1973 Yom Kippur War, finally, the Egyptian army was on its last legs and would have surrendered before the ceasefire was effected. But this time the war has been different. And there has been a big battle on. But I'm really surprised that Hamas could be so heartless and go around killing Israelis, not caring that 32,000 of their own kin and brethren have been killed. I think they're not bothered about it. And they still don't want a proper ceasefire, don't want to hand over the hostages. They don't mind another 30,000 being killed. So this is what is people have to watch out. The Arabs have to see. Is it this what you are expecting? Is this what you want? That another 50,000 or 100,000 Palestinian Arabs are killed just because to satisfy the whims of a leadership which is holding the state of Gaza at the point of a gun, that is Hamas. In the north, there is also one organization, that the Hezbollah, which is operating from Syria, but I think it's been kept in check at the moment, but it could erupt any time. So the next question is, when will World War III start? Now you can't forecast a date, but definitely it will be there. This is how wars start, on misconceived notions. The Hamas had a misconceived notion that Israel will buckle down and win. And the Israelis also had a misconceived notion that we'll be able to smash Hamas easily. Both things haven't happened. And the world is standing against Israel. That is the sad part of the solution. Nobody's bothered about what is right and wrong. Look at South Africa going to the International Court and accusing Israel of genocide. I don't think the leadership in South Africa understands the English meaning of the word genocide. It is made mass-scale sectarian and religious killing. Genocide was done in Cambodia. It was done in Germany and in some of the African states. But definitely the war in Israel cannot be called genocide. The Gaza Strip with which the Israelis have moved out is not genocide. It is a military battle. And the only person who is not following the rules of law are Hamas. When you're fighting a war, do you take hostages? I don't understand it. Because they know they're not capable of beating Israel. So they take hostages to put pressure on Israel so that they can, somehow keep their head up. Now, if the keeping the head up means taking hostages, torturing them and, using them for their fun and hiding them, not letting them go. I mean, if that is the Hamas way of thinking, there's nothing else. Then I have repeatedly said this organization is fresh. It is for the world to unite to finish off Hamas. But there is a modicum of support among the Muslim masses for Hamas. It is just sectarian, that they are Islamic, so we must support them. Look at Pakistan, it is talking all nonsense most of the time and has made itself irrelevant in the world. So gentlemen, I think I'll come to it. I repeat, we are on the road to World War III. If Iran attacks, Israel is going to retaliate. And God forbid, if Israel is going to be threatened and become extinct and be wiped out from the world map, do you think they won't use the nuclear weapon? And once they use that and use it on any of the Arab states, I think it will be Armageddon, the last war. I don't know who's going to win it that time, but probably Israel will survive. And only the eastern part of the world, China and India, they'll be left and they'll be fighting their own battles together. Against each other. So we'll have to see who wins at that time, China or India. But the world is facing a great crisis. If you look at 4,000 years of world history from the time of the Mahabharata, the one common refrain throughout has been war, battle. The Mahabharata also was a war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And war continues now. In the Gaza Strip, there's one in Ukraine. I'll talk about that later. In the meanwhile, gentlemen, I hope World War III doesn't take place and something good comes out, but I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel at the moment today as it goes. I will close now, gentlemen, say goodbye to you. I hope you subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and come back for more. Goodbye and God bless.